Let's keep our marriage a secret for now, Marcus said, carefully folding our new marriage certificate and sliding it into his briefcase. It's better for my career. I stood in the courthouse hallway, my simple white dress suddenly feeling too tight. We had been married for only 20 minutes, but already, Marcus was treating it like something to hide. I'm Olivia, 31 years old, and I had just become Mrs. Walker, but apparently, no one was supposed to know. Marcus and I had been together for 3 years before he suggested a small courthouse wedding. No guests, no celebration. It'll be romantic, he said, but now I wasn't so sure. Of course, I said, forcing a smile. Whatever you think is best. Marcus smiled, kissed my cheek, and checked his phone. I've got a meeting. Dinner tonight? Then he walked away, looking perfect as always, while my heart felt anything but. 2 weeks later, I was organizing our home office when I found something shocking. A stack of fancy wedding invitations in Marcus's desk drawer. You are invited to the wedding of Marcus James Walker and Victoria Bennett. I stared at the invitation. The date was 3 months away. Marcus, my husband, was planning a wedding to someone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Meeting running late. Don't wait up. I smiled. No problem. Take your time. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. Instead, I made a plan. The next morning, I met with Diana, a lawyer friend. I showed her everything. Our marriage certificate, the wedding invitations, suspicious texts. Her eyes widened. He's marrying someone else while legally married to you. That's illegal. I nodded. What can I do? Diana smirked. The real question is, how much trouble do you want to cause? Over the next few weeks, I played my role perfectly, the loving, trusting wife. I never questioned Marcus's late nights or sudden weekend trips. Meanwhile, I gathered more proof. Victoria was 25 from a wealthy family, and Marcus clearly thought she was a better match for his career. You're handling this well, Diana observed. I shrugged. Marcus thinks I'm naive. Let him keep thinking that. As June approached, Marcus became more anxious. He was juggling 2 lives, and it was catching up to him. He started making mistakes, leaving wedding details on his laptop, taking calls from Victoria when he thought I wasn't listening. One night, he sat me down, looking serious. Liv, I think we need some time apart. Oh, I said, keeping my face neutral. I just think we rushed into this too quickly, he continued. We want different things. I understand, I said softly. Relief filled his face. You're amazing, Liv. I knew you'd understand. We can keep this private, right? I smiled. Of course, Marcus. Everything will be handled exactly as it should be. That night, he packed a bag and left, probably heading straight to Victoria's. As soon as he was gone, I texted Diana. He took the bait. Time for phase 2. Marcus thought he was in control, but on June 15th, his perfect plan was going to explode in his face. The weeks before June 15th felt like a carefully planned game. Marcus had officially moved out, acting like a regretful husband who needed space. Meanwhile, I gathered more proof, including recordings of his phone calls about the wedding with Victoria, completely unaware that I had placed a legal recording device in our home office. Through social media, I learned that Victoria's family was going all out for their daughter's perfect day. The wedding was set for the luxurious Grand River Hotel, with over 300 guests attending. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus, who insisted on a secret courthouse wedding with me, now wanted a grand public celebration. Diana kept me updated. Everything's ready, she told me. The police are on standby. Are you sure you want to do this publicly? I nodded, thinking about all the nights Marcus had lied so easily. He wanted a big audience. I'm just making sure he gets one. 2 days before the wedding, Marcus called. Liv, I hope you're okay. I know this must be hard. I cut him off. I'm fine, Marcus. Actually, I've been thinking about what you said, and you were right. He sounded surprised. I was. Completely, I said. Sometimes people just aren't who we think they are. He had no idea how true that was. On the morning of June 15th, I dressed in a sharp blue suit, applied my makeup with a steady hand, and picked up the manila envelope full of evidence. At 11:30 a.m., Diana met me at the hotel lobby. The officers are in place, she whispered, ready. I thought about Marcus's lies, his arrogance, the way he dismissed me like I was nothing. More than ready. We walked toward the ballroom. where wedding guests chatted excitedly. A coordinator stopped us. "I'm sorry, but this is a private event." I smiled. "Oh, I know. I'm here for the wedding." She frowned. "Your name?" "Mrs. Walker," I said. "The bride." Her face paled. "That's impossible. The bride is Miss Bennet." Diana stepped forward, handing over her business card. "There's been a mistake, but not on our part. We need to speak with Marcus Walker immediately." Moments later, chaos erupted. Security was called. Then the police arrived just as planned. Marcus was pulled from the groom's suite, his face turning pale when he saw me. "Liv," he stammered. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, husband," I said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "I thought I should attend your wedding. After all, we're still legally married." Gasps filled the room. Victoria's father stormed forward. "What is the meaning of this?" Diana handed over the evidence. "Mr. Bennet, Marcus Walker married my client 2 months ago. He is now attempting to commit bigamy, which is a criminal offense." Marcus turned red. "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my phone and hit play. His own voice filled the room, discussing wedding details with Victoria while admitting he was already married. Victoria stood frozen in her wedding dress, tears running down her face. Her father looked furious. Diana turned to the officers. "I believe it's time." The police stepped forward and arrested Marcus, reading him his rights. The guests whispered in shock. Victoria's mother tried to comfort her, while Mr. Bennet was already calling his lawyers. Diana touched my arm, ready to go. I glanced at the chaos Marcus had caused. The lies, the betrayal, the shattered wedding. "Yes," I said. "I think my work here is done." As we stepped outside, Diana asked, "Why didn't you confront him sooner?" I smiled. "Because Marcus always cared about appearances. It was only right to let him face the truth in front of the people he wanted to impress." The sunlight felt warm on my face. For the first time in months, I felt free. Marcus had tried to keep me in the shadows. Instead, his lies had been exposed in the brightest light of all, exactly where they belonged. The aftermath of Marcus's failed wedding unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Within hours, the story had spread through both our professional circles. Marcus, the master manipulator, found himself facing not just legal consequences, but the complete destruction of the carefully crafted image he'd built. Victoria's father, as I learned through Diana, was pressing charges for fraud beyond the bigamy charge. Apparently, Marcus had convinced the Bennets to invest in several business ventures that were starting to look suspiciously like a Ponzi scheme. "The TA is very interested in the evidence we gathered," Diana told me over coffee a week later. Those recordings didn't just catch him admitting to the double marriage, they caught him discussing multiple fraudulent schemes. He was using the wedding to secure more investments from Victoria's family. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, absorbing the information. And Victoria, devastated but grateful, surprisingly. She sent a message through her lawyer thanking you for stopping her from making the biggest mistake of her life. Apparently, there were red flags she'd been ignoring. I knew all about those red flags. The constant need for privacy, the mysterious business meetings, the way he'd twist situations to his advantage. I'd seen them all, but I'd chosen to see them through the lens of love and trust. Never again. Marcus tried to contact me from jail, leaving messages with promises of explanations, pleas for understanding, even threats. I forwarded them all to Diana without listening to them. His words had lost their power over me. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, given the circumstances. Marcus had no defense, no leverage, and no choice but to agree to my terms. The judge was particularly unsympathetic to his attempts to claim any marital assets. "You tried to enter into a fraudulent marriage while already legally married," the judge stated flatly. "You're lucky your wife isn't pursuing additional civil charges." My colleague Sarah caught me in the hospital hallway one morning, concern etched on her face. "Are you really okay? After everything that happened?" I considered her question carefully. "You know what's strange? I am. For months, I carried the weight of his deception, planning and preparing for that moment. Now that it's over, I feel lighter." And it was true. The anxiety that had lived in my chest since finding those wedding invitations had dissolved, replaced by a sense of quiet strength. I'd faced the worst kind of betrayal and emerged stronger, wiser. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. It was Victoria's mother, elegant and poised despite the obvious discomfort of the situation. "I needed to thank you in person," she said, perching on the edge of the visitor's chair. "Not just for saving Victoria from marriage to that man, but for handling it the way you did. You could have exposed everything much earlier, made an even bigger scandal." I shook my head. That wouldn't have served any purpose. I needed to make sure he couldn't twist his way out of it, couldn't make more victims. She nodded, understanding. "Well, Victoria is doing much better now. She's focusing on her career, being more cautious with her trust. You taught us all a valuable lesson about looking beneath the surface." As she left, I thought about lessons learned. Marcus had taught me that some people view relationships as transactions, love as a currency to be traded for advantage. But he'd also taught me my own strength, my capacity for strategic thinking under emotional pressure. Deanna called me last week with news that Marcus had accepted a plea deal. He would serve time for both the bigamy and fraud charges. His career was over, his reputation destroyed. The man who had been so concerned with keeping options open now found all his options closed. "Any regrets?" Diana asked after telling me the news. I thought about that day in the courthouse, when Marcus slipped our marriage certificate into his briefcase like it was a shameful secret. I thought about the nights I'd spent planning, gathering evidence, preparing for the moment of truth. I thought about Victoria in her wedding dress, saved from a life of lies. "No," I said finally. "No regrets. Sometimes the best thing you can do with a toxic secret is bring it into the light." Now, 6 months after that fateful June day, I'm sitting in my newly redecorated home office. The space that once held so many of Marcus's lies has been transformed, much like I have. On my desk sits a small plaque Diana gave me. "The truth has a way of rising to the surface." I've learned that love shouldn't require secrets, that trust once broken cannot be repaired, and that sometimes the strongest response to betrayal is not immediate revenge but patient, calculated justice. Marcus wanted to keep our marriage hidden in darkness. Instead, his deception was exposed in the brightest way possible. He thought he was the clever one, playing everyone for his benefit. In the end, his greatest mistake was underestimating the quiet strength of the woman he thought he could simply erase from his story. Sometimes I wonder if he ever truly knew me at all. The real me, not the compliant, understanding wife he thought he'd married, but the woman who refused to be made invisible. I hope he thinks about that during his time in prison. I hope he remembers that some secrets are too big to keep, and some betrayals too deep to hide. As for me, I'm writing my own story now, and there's not a single secret in it.